Escape to reality, Judy and Roman.
Should have turned that so I could see the magic word. Maybe I get extra points for that. Ooh, wonderful. When I moved back to Toronto a few decades ago, from the suburbs, York region in particular, I moved back because there were a lot of interests I had, a lot of social interests I had that were very difficult to fulfill where I was living. In Toronto, we have everything. One of my interests is films, not quite to the extent of Reno, but I love good films. And I learned to appreciate all different kinds of films. One of those kinds of films were documentaries. Now, documentaries almost always interest me. And I find that it is time well spent watching a documentary. I often go to the Bloor Hot Docs cinema that shows documentaries, of course. And their slogan is, escape to reality. Madam Toastmaster, our guests, and my fellow Toastmasters, that's what I want to do this evening. I want to invite you to think more about escaping to reality. Now, I said I wanted to go to real theaters and see real films. That's as opposed to, well, now of course we have on demand, but at that time it was stopping at the video store and renting a VHS tape. Somehow going and viewing something with a bunch of other people who you don't necessarily know, there's a vibe when you do that you don't get sitting at home and pausing it to go to the bathroom or make a phone call or whatever it is you might do when you're kind of half distracted watching a film. Another thing I was interested in wine clubs. I'm kind of an avid wine drinker. And in Toronto, there were all sorts of wine clubs. And they had events that sold out virtually all the time. They said, sorry, our capacity is only 40 people at this restaurant. And in the media, the only thing you could really find out much about wine was the Star and the Globe that each had a weekly column on wine. Now these clubs were busy, but I've noticed in the last number of years, their memberships are dropping. Some of the clubs have just completely folded. And even the members don't bother showing up for a lot of things. Now, someone told me this is because virtually you can get almost anything nowadays. But it's not the same as being there in person. The other day on a website, I got one of those wonderful pop-up ads, and I have no idea how they singled me out, but it said, now you can join Weight Watchers online. Now, I always thought the point of Weight Watchers was to have someone there in person to hand you a tissue when you didn't lose any weight that week. How could virtual Weight Watchers work? I'm not exactly sure. My granddaughter's quite an avid reader. She reads probably $2,000 worth of books a year. She always goes and buys them at Chapters, as opposed to going to the library. Now, this year she has begun volunteering at her local library. So I asked her, I said, oh, hey, how'd that go last Saturday, that volunteering at the library thing? And I was just expecting a typical teenage, or whatever. My gosh, she started in, she was so excited. She says, oh, you won't believe it. She says, we were taking all the books and moving them to the new library, and we put them in milk crates, and she says they have a lot of books they're selling. She says, I was going through them, and she says, there are wonderful books there. Books that I never knew existed. She says there's one on the history of math, and there was another one on travel, and there must be something about going to the real library rather than downloading books. There must be something about reality. And I started thinking, I wonder if we're going to have Toastmasters online. And how exactly would that work? It can't be far away. But what I'm saying to you is, now and again, when you have the choice, when you can do something online or you can actually show up in person, think about it. And maybe just a little more often, though it might take a little more effort and a little more time, think about escaping to reality.